Good day, Deep in Word family. Welcome to day 144 of our Bible study review. Today we're going through chapters 25 through 27 of the book of Jeremiah. Chapter 25 opens up and we see that this whole chapter is about the 70 years of captivity, but not just Judah. Other nations surrounded are going to be affected by this. And so let's just open up and start reading from verse 1. It says, "The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all of the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, which Jeremiah the prophet spoke to all of the people of Judah and to all of the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, from the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, even to this day, these 23 years, the word of Yahuah has come to me, and I have spoken to you, rising early and speaking, but you have not listened," right? He's saying, it's not just me, right? I'm one prophet, but Yahuah has sent you many prophets to tell you to turn back your ways, amend your ways so that this destruction does not have to happen. But you do not listen, right? You turn to your own wicked hearts and you listen to these lying prophets who say no matter what you do, you're good to go. And so right here, this is the result. In verse 8, it says, "For thus says Yahuah of hosts, because you have not obeyed my words, I will send and take all of the families of the north, says Yahuah, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant." See, Yah is calling Nebuchadnezzar his servant, right? And I know that that's offensive to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, right? Judah right now. They're like, what? Nebuchadnezzar is not his servant. I'm sure that's what they're saying. Let's keep reading. "And will bring them against this land and its inhabitants and against all of the surrounding nations," right? So this is not just Judah. This is everyone surrounding. And he says, "I will utterly destroy them and make them an astonishment, a hissing and perpetual desolations. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of laughter and the voice of gladness and the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride." He says, your joyful weddings will no longer take place. All right. And right here, "This whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And that is true, right? Judah does. Not just Judah, but the surrounding nations. Now, Judah is going to be exiled, but the other nations, right? If they will listen and hearken to this prophecy, then the other nations will be able to remain in their lands, but they will still have to pay tribute to King Nebuchadnezzar. So here's the good news, after hearing all of this not so great news, he says, "It shall come to pass when 70 years are finished that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, says Yahuah, for their iniquity and the land of the Chaldeans, and will make it a perpetual desolation." Now, I can tag the video again, but I've shared it before. Babylon, after he said, this time there will be no other king to sit on the throne of Babylon, he will make this place a place of desolation. Right now, in the ancient land of Babylon, that is exactly what it is. It is a den of jackals, right? It's run over with wild animals. There is no one, it's not a kingdom. No one is sitting upon the throne in this area. It is a wild desolation. So this is furthermore what he says about the Chaldeans, about, Babylon, about this land. He says, "I will bring upon that land all of my words, which I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah has prophesied against all of the nations. For many nations and great kings will make slaves of them, even them. I will recompense them according to their deeds and according to the works of their hands." So we know that, Babylon, all of these kings, they get a little too far ahead of themselves. Now they are used as an instrument to correct Yah's people, but then they go too far out of hand and then they fill up the cup of iniquity. So he judges them as well. Then it transitions into this portion talking about the cup of Yah's wrath. And we will see that he's talking about this impending judgment that is going to happen to Judah and the surrounding nations. And then it kind of pivots and talks about this future time where he enters into judgment with all flesh upon the earth. And so let's just start reading and see how this goes. Verse 15, "For thus says Yahuah, Elohim of Israel, to me," right? So he's talking to Jeremiah, "Take the wine cup of this fury at my hand and cause all of the nations to whom I send to you to drink. They will drink and totter and be mad because of the sword that I will send among them. And so he's talking about Judah. He's talking about the Philistines. He's talking about Ammon, right? Egypt, all of the surrounding nations, right? And if they don't want to drink, right? He says, this is what you shall tell them if they say they don't want to drink of this cup of my fury, right here in verse 27. Therefore you shall say to them, thus says Yahuah Sabaoth, the Elohim of Israel, drink and be drunk and spew and fall and rise no more because of the sword which I send among you. It will be that if they refuse to take the cup from your hand to drink, then you will say to them, thus says Yahuah Sabaoth, you shall certainly drink. Verse 29, for I am starting to bring calamity on the city which is called by my name. So we know this is Jerusalem, right? And should you be utterly unpunished? You shall not be unpunished, for I will call for a sword upon all of the inhabitants of the earth, says Yahuah Sabaoth. Therefore prophesy against them all these words and say to them, Yahuah will roar from on high and utter his voice from his holy habitation, and he will mightily roar against his fold, right? Against his own people. He will give a shout as those who tread the grapes against all inhabitants of the earth. A noise shall come even to the remote parts of the earth, for Yahuah has a controversy with the nations. He shall enter into judgment with all flesh. He shall give those who are wicked to the sword, says Yahuah. Thus says Yahuah Sabaoth, see, disaster shall go forth from nation to nation. A great whirlwind shall be raised up from the remote parts of the earth. So initially it's talking about, the judgment of Judah and the surrounding nations, but then it looks like it's talking about a future time because he says to the remote parts of the earth. Well, the remote parts of the earth are not surrounding Judah, right? Jerusalem, right? So it's pivoting to this future time. And it says right here in verse 33, the slain of Yahuah on that day will be from the end of the earth, even to one end to the other. Then they will not be lamented or gathered or buried. They will be as dung upon the ground. So he's talking about a future time of judgment as well, right? So there's a double reference here. And then chapter 25 ends telling, the shepherds and all of these false teachers, right, to howl and cry because their ways will come to an end. They will no longer be shepherds. He will put their false work to an end. Now we walk into chapter 26, and Jeremiah is threatened with death because of what Yahuah instructs him to say to the people, right? To these noblemen, to these kings, the prophets, and, all these people who are sitting in high places. So let's read and see how this plays out. It says, in the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. So it's going back to this king, Jehoiakim, right? So sometimes when we're reading about these prophecies, it goes back and forth to different time periods, all right? So now it's going back to Jehoiakim, all right? Kim. So it says, thus says Yahuah, stand in the court of the house of Yahuah and speak to all of the cities of Judah who come to worship in the house of Yahuah, all the words that I command you to them. And he says, do not diminish a word, right? Don't edit it out, right? I don't care how harsh it seems. Speak every last word that I tell you to speak to them. And then in verse 3, we see why he says, do not diminish a word. He says, perhaps when you speak these words from my mouth, they will repent and turn away from their wicked deeds, and then I won't have to bring this calamity upon them. Do you see? He speaks a word through his prophets so that the people will repent. That's the job of a prophet, to speak the word of Yah, right? So that they may repent. That is the job of a prophet. A prophet is sent because the people are falling away. And he says, if you speak every harsh word, maybe they'll turn away, right? And maybe they'll have 15, 20 more years peacefully in their land. But we all know that that's not going to happen. Verse 4, you will say to them, thus says Yahuah, if you will not listen to me, to walk in my law, which I have set before you, which really is Torah, okay? And he says, to listen to the words of my servants, the prophets whom I sent to you, both rising up early and sending them, but you have not listened. Then I will make this house like Shiloh, and will make this city a curse to all of the nations of the earth. And so it says, the priests and the prophets and all of the people who heard Jeremiah speaking these words in the house of Yahuah, that they took hold of him, and they said, you shall surely die. You have prophesied in the name of Yahuah, saying, this house will be like Shiloh, and this city will be desolate without an inhabitant. And all of the people gathered against Jeremiah in the house of Yahuah. So all of the officials and all of the people who were surrounding, right, they laid hold of him and they spoke these words. They said, he is deserving of death. And so Jeremiah speaks back to them and he says, Yahuah has sent me to prophesy against this house and against this city all of the words which you have heard. Therefore now amend your ways and your deeds and obey the voice of Yahuah, your Elohim, and Yahuah will repent of the disaster that he has pronounced against you. As for me, here I am in your hand. Do with me as what seems right to you. But know for certain that if you put me to death, you will surely bring innocent blood upon yourselves and upon this city and upon the inhabitants. For truly, Yahuah has sent me to speak to you all of these words in your ears. So we see that Jeremiah, like, he's not relenting. He does not have a fear of man. He has the fear of Yah. And he's like, no, do whatever you feel you got to do. But if you shed my blood, you have more innocent bloodshed upon this land. You're just going to add more on top of the judgment that is already against you, essentially. And so right here in verse 16, it says, then the officials and all the people said to the priests and the prophets, this man is not worthy of death, for he has spoken to us in the name of Yahuah, our Elohim, right? So Jeremiah is so firm on his stance that he invoked the name of Yah, right? And if you go back to our previous reading chapters, it is a sin to place his name on something, right? And swear on his name and then that thing not to be true. You could be put to death for that. That's a Torah instruction, is to not bring his name to naught. Do not invoke his name, right? If you make a vow, then you complete that vow and you remain true, because if you sin against him, that's a whole nother level of punishment, and it's punishable by death, right? And so they say right here in verse 17, certain of the elders of the land rose up and spoke to the assembly of the people, and they reminded them that Micah prophesied against the land, right, during the time of King Hezekiah. And King Hezekiah heard those words, and King Hezekiah did not put Micah to death. Now, if you need to go and search out Micah, right, because Micah was alive during the time of the prophet Isaiah, right, because Isaiah worked with King Hezekiah as well. And so they're saying, look, King Hezekiah didn't put this man to death for speaking the truth. Verse 19, did Hezekiah, king of Judah, and all of Judah put him to death? Did he not fear Yahuah and entreat Yahuah? And then Yahuah relented of the disaster which he had pronounced against them. Thus we might procure great evil against ourselves. So now the people are thinking, right? They're remembering the words that another prophet spoke against the land and against the kingdom. And Hezekiah, if you remember, Isaiah told Hezekiah to get his house in order because he was going to die, right? He was sick with illness, and Hezekiah spoke out, right? He cried out to Yahuah because he was a righteous king. He listened to the true words of the true prophets. And because his heart mourned, right? He cried out to Yahuah. You can go back and see that Yahuah added 15 years onto Hezekiah's life when he was meant to die right during that time. And so righteous prayers of righteous men availeth much. Hezekiah was not perfect. He was flawed. He invited the king of Babylon to come and see all the treasures within his house. But Hezekiah, he was a good king. And then the people told the story of another prophet, Uriah, who spoke against Jehoiakim, right? And then because he spoke truthful words, right, they were after his life. So he fled to Egypt. But King Jehoiakim sent others to go get him, brought him back, and they killed him, right? So they spilled innocent blood, right, of a prophet, a true prophet. But the end of the chapter of chapter 26 says that nonetheless Jeremiah's life was spared. He was protected, right? Because Yah said at the very beginning, I will make you like a bronze gate. They may push against you, but they will not prevail against you. Now we walk into chapter 27, and this is about, Judah and other surrounding nations that they will serve Nebuchadnezzar, right? Just the previous chapters we saw that Jeremiah, was given this cup and he's telling these people, drink, right? And he says, you will surely drink, right? And so this is furthermore just confirming the words that he has already spoken. So it says right here, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, this word came to Jeremiah from Yahuah, saying, thus says Yahuah to me, make bonds and yokes and put them on your neck and send them to the king of Edom and to the king of Moab, the Ammonites, the king of Tyre. He's saying all of these surrounding nations, you will serve Nebuchadnezzar, you might as well put that bond on your neck and that yoke on your neck, because this is going to be the world empire and you will serve him. Verse 7, all nations shall serve him and his son's sons until the time of his own land comes. He's saying until the time of their judgment comes. It says, and then many nations and great kings will make him their servants. Well, that does happen to Babylon, okay? So they get a bond around their neck after their time of judgment. But let's get back to the text. Verse 8, it shall come to pass that I will punish the nation and the kingdom which will not serve Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, says Yahuah. I will punish that nation with the sword and with famine and with pestilence until I have consumed them by his hand. Therefore, do not listen to your prophets or your diviners or your enchanters or sorcerers, saying, you shall not serve the king of Babylon, for they prophesy a lie to you in order to remove you far from your land. And the rest of the chapter, he also warns and he says, look, don't listen to the lying mouths of prophets who say that the vessels that have been carried away already to Babylon will soon return. He says, no, they will not. The rest of these vessels that are still left, they will go off to Babylon, and they will not return into the appointed time that I have said, which is 70 years. It will not return before that. Verse 21, indeed, thus says Yahuah Sabaoth, the Elohim of Israel, concerning the vessels that remain in this house of Yahuah and in the house of the king of Judah in Jerusalem. They will be carried to Babylon, and they will be there until the day that I visit them, says Yahuah. Then I will bring them up and restore them to this place, right? And this happens during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah when they start coming back. We are not there yet, but that's the time point that he is speaking of. So Yahuah is essentially saying, look, the time is up, right? You have not repented. I've given you plenty of time to turn back from your ways. And now judgment must take place. The cup of iniquity, it is full. You are going off to Babylon, whether you like it or not. And the surrounding nations, you will serve the king of Babylon, whether you like it or not. This is going to be the world power for 70 years. Deal with it. I'm the king on the throne, and what I say goes. And at this point, it was already happening. Some of the vessels in the house of Yah have already been taken off to Babylon. He's already taken certain kings and certain noblemen. It's already happening. And so they still have a glimpse of hope that somehow Yahuah will revoke these, punishments. And Yah is saying, no, I will not. I was merciful for enough. You have to learn your lesson. And only the true remnant who obey my voice, those are the ones who will come back to this land and be able to rebuild this second temple. Deep and Word family, that's all that I have for you today. Until tomorrow, Yah bless.